the emerald canopy pressed down with suffocating weight, every leaf and creeping vine dripping with condensation that clung to Jonathan Vega's skin. He hacked forward with his vibro machete, each stroke biting into fibrous stalks that refused to yield easily. The weapon hummed in his hand, slicing through Narum's dense undergrowth as gnats swarmed his ears and strange bird-like cries echoed above. Sweat slicked his bare torso, tracing lines over muscles hardened by years of training, and catching the filtered shafts of green-tinted light that pierced the canopy. His light brown hair was damp, clinging to his forehead, and he muttered curses. Under his breath, "Resource survey, my ass?" he growled, stopping long enough to swipe his brow with the back of his hand. The scanner strapped to his pack beeped softly, announcing trace elements of rhodium in the nearby rock. That was the reason he was here alone, sweating through jungle hell for a corporate payout. He had told himself the credits were worth it, told himself he needed something to do after leaving the Special Forces. But the truth was simpler. Jonathan Vega didn't know how to sit still. He had been chasing danger since he could walk, and now that the military no longer gave him orders, he sought it out on his own terms. Another beep, another note scribbled into his datapad. At least this planet might turn a profit. He shifted the pack on his shoulders, his mind already on the promise of a cold drink aboard his ship, the Nomad, when the jungle shattered with a sound that froze him in place. A scream, high-pitched, distinctly feminine, and so raw with terror that it cut through Narum's sweltering hum like a blade. Jonathan's head snapped up, instincts snapping back like they had never left. His hand closed tighter on the machete, body lowering automatically into a hunter's crouch. The jungle fell away into silence, only his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Then it came again, a second scream, even more desperate than the first. Didn't hesitate. Scanner forgotten. Datapad shoved into his pack. Jonathan moved. His feet were silent over the damp loam, his breathing steady. Years of infiltration training returned with each careful step. He slid between thick fern leaves and crouched low at the edge of a clearing, eyes narrowing as he took in the scene before him. A smell of burning meat and acrid smoke filled the clearing. A fire roared at its center, crackling beneath a crude spit of lashed wood. Around it stood 7 figures, gangly, mottled creatures, whose green-brown skin shifted in camouflage patterns, blending almost seamlessly with the foliage. Their 4 eyes blinked in strange rhythm as they chittered and hissed at one another, long spears of bone and stone in hand. Suspended over the flames was the source of the screams. A woman, at least, close enough to human in shape. Her skin was a delicate lavender hue, her long silver hair hanging limp and singed near the fire. She was bound at wrist and ankle, her body slowly rotating as the spit turned. Her black flight suit was torn, stripped in places by her captors, revealing raw red burns along her arms. When her head lolled, her amber eyes caught Jonathan's through the foliage. Wide, pleading, desperate. Jonathan swore softly under his breath. This wasn't his mission. He was here to survey resources, not play hero. The smart move was to slip back into the trees and report what he had seen. The Trade Commission would send a proper team if they cared at all. His bonus credits were waiting, and those vaccines in his hold were promised to an outpost that actually needed them. But he didn't move, because her eyes were still on him. And he had seen that look before on battlefields where civilians prayed for soldiers to do the right thing. He weighed his options with soldiers' precision. 7 targets. Primitive weapons, but sharp enough to kill. The girl would die long before he could cut through all of them. Unless he gave them something else. Unless he made them a deal. Slowly, deliberately, Jonathan rose from the foliage and stepped into the clearing. The Krell spun toward him, spears raised, their clicking voices rising in alarm. He lifted his hands in a show of peace, though the vibro machete gleamed at his side. "Easy," he said, his voice calm but carrying iron. "I come in peace, more or less." The creatures chittered among themselves, uncertain. Jonathan slipped his pack off his shoulder, crouched, and pulled. Free a sealed case. He opened it with a hiss of compressed air, displaying rows of neatly packed vials. "Medicine," he said, gesturing with exaggerated slowness. He pointed to the girl, then back to the case. "You give her to me. You get this." The leader stepped forward, its 4 eyes blinking as it studied the vials. Then it barked an order. 2 Krell moved to lower the spit from the fire. The lavender-skinned woman gasped as the heat receded. They cut her bonds, only to drag her across the dirt by her hair. Jonathan's jaw tightened, but he forced himself to remain still. He slid the case across the ground. The leader scooped it up, examined the vials, then made a dismissive gesture. Jonathan moved quickly, intercepting the woman before they changed their minds. She collapsed into his arms, trembling, her skin cool against his sweat-drenched chest. Light as a feather. Her eyes met his once more, the terror softening into something else, something like hope. "Let's not do this again sometime," he muttered tightly, backing away with her cradled in his arms. The jungle swallowed them. Once more Dot and Jonathan Vega knew his simple survey mission had just ended. He was in it now. Jonathan carried her until his arms ached, but he didn't slow. Every step through the tangled green felt like a stolen second before the Krell changed their minds and came after them. Branches slapped his shoulders and vines snagged at his legs as though the jungle itself wanted to pull her back. The girl clung weakly to him, trembling, her breath shallow against his chest. Dot at last, through the blur of foliage. The clearing appeared where he had left the Nomad. The ship sat low on its landing struts, its matte gray hull blending poorly against Narum's suffocating greens. Jonathan hurried up the ramp, slapped his hand on the biometric scanner, and the entry hatch hissed open. He stepped into the cooler air of the ship, the jungle's noise muffling to a dull hum as the ramp closed behind them. He lowered her gently into the co-pilot's chair. She sagged against the seat, silver hair spilling over her face, burned stark against lavender skin. In the softer cabin light, Jonathan saw angry red welts circling her wrists and ankles where the bindings had cut deep. For a long moment, he just stood there, chest heaving, trying to force his soldier's instincts to calm. Then he crossed to the med alcove, yanking open a kit. "This is going to sting," he muttered, uncapping a vial of burned gel. Her amber eyes fluttered open. They were startling up close, glowing faintly, like twin embers. Her lips moved, the words soft, accented but clear. "You saved me." Jonathan crouched beside her, smearing the gel gently over one burn, watching the skin cool from inflamed. Red to pale lavender. "Yeah, well, didn't seem right to leave you on the menu." Her lips quirked faintly, a smile ghosting across her face despite the pain. "You joke, after risking your life?" "It's a bad habit," Jonathan said, working methodically. "Name's Jonathan Vega. Human. Earth." She blinked slowly, her voice stronger now. "Vera Kicks of Astralis. Diplomatic Corps." She lifted a shaking hand to her ear, revealing the faint gleam of a translator implant. "I owe you my life, Jonathan Vega of Earth." "Don't mention it," he said, bandaging her wrist. "Just returning the favor to the universe." "I scream at it sometimes, too." The humor didn't mask the storm in his mind. Astralis. That name carried weight. 3 years ago, after the disaster on Proxima, Earth and Astralis had come to the brink of war. Tensions still simmered like fault lines under fragile ground. And here he was with a half-burned Astralis diplomat in his ship. If her people found her with him? Diplomatic corps, Jonathan repeated carefully. What's a diplomat doing tied to a spit on a jungle rock? Vera's expression darkened, her voice low. We came to Narum as an exploratory delegation. Initial contact with the Krell was promising. We were exchanging culture, language, hopes. Then, without warning, they turned. My shuttle was disabled, my team scattered. I tried to negotiate. Instead, they... Her gaze flickered, haunted. You saw. Jonathan finished the last of her bandages, rising with a grunt. Something spooked them, or someone nudged them. Vera met his eyes, serious now. Perhaps, but there is more you must know. Astralis and Earth, relations remain. Delicate. The Proxima monument destroyed, the grief still raw. My people do not trust yours easily. Jonathan moved to the pilot's chair, running fingers across the controls. The engines hummed faintly, a comfort in the silence. So rescuing you makes me a political liability. It makes you my savior, Vera said firmly, surprising him. But yes, others may not see it that way. Jonathan let out a low whistle, leaning back. He hadn't signed up for politics. He was supposed to be logging mineral deposits, not ferrying alien ambassadors through diplomatic minefields. Yet when he looked at her, fragile but unbroken in the co-pilot's chair, he knew there was no turning back. Before he could respond, the ship's console blared. A signal pulsed through the speakers, sharp and urgent. Jonathan's eyes narrowed as he recognized the frequency. Astralis, distress beacon. Vera sat upright, color draining from her face. That's an envoy ship, one of ours. Under attack. Jonathan's hands hovered over the controls. He could plot a course to safety, take her to neutral territory, wash his hands of all of this. It would be the smart choice. But the soldier in him, the one who had followed her screams into the jungle, already knew what he was going to do. He turned to her, voice steady. Then we're going to help. Vera stared at him, disbelief flickering in her amber eyes. Even after Proxima, after what my people think of yours. Doesn't matter, Jonathan said, setting the course. I didn't pull you off. That fire just to start ignoring distress calls. Somebody's in trouble. That's enough. For a moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the hum of the ship preparing to lift. And Vera's lips curved, the faintest smile. Humans, she whispered, shaking her head. So reckless, so necessary. The Nomad's engines roared to life, lifting them from Narum's choking jungle and into the storm of something far larger than Jonathan had ever intended. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The Nomad cut across Narum's upper atmosphere, its hull trembling as Jonathan forced the ship through the last layers of turbulence. Beyond the clouds, the stars spread wide and merciless, a black canvas pricked with pinpricks of cold light. For a moment, the quiet was almost peaceful. Then the consoles began to scream. The readings hit him all at once: gravitational distortions, power surges, space itself bending in unnatural ways. Jonathan's hands flew over the controls, fighting the sudden drag that gripped his ship like invisible claws. What the hell? He muttered, punching the thrusters. The Nomad strained, but did not respond, its trajectory shifting inexorably toward the jagged silhouette of an asteroid belt. Beside him, Vera leaned forward, amber eyes sharp with recognition. That's no natural phenomenon. Someone is pulling. Use in. Jonathan's jaw clenched as he saw the confirmation flash across the sensors. Energy signatures. Not random gravity wells, not a freak anomaly. A directed tractor beam. Great, he said through his teeth. We just got ourselves caught in a giant cosmic fishing net. Vera's face paled. Jonathan, those are Astralis signatures. His. Head whipped toward her. Your people? Not mine, she corrected, voice grim. Isolationists. They maintain hidden installations across border systems. Radical elements who oppose all diplomacy. If they know I survived? Her words trailed, but Jonathan caught the edge of fear she tried to suppress. The nomad lurched violently, pulled deeper into the asteroid cluster. Metal groaned as the ship was guided like prey into the gaping maw of a concealed docking bay, carved into an asteroid's heart. Jonathan's fingers hovered over the manual overrides, but he knew futility when he felt it. "They want us alive," he muttered. "Otherwise we'd already be dust." The docking clamps slammed into place. With a bone-shaking thud, hydraulic arms pinned the nomad to the bay's deck. Jonathan shut down the engines, every nerve screaming at the helplessness of it. He reached for his sidearm, checked the charge, and glanced at Vera. "You ready to meet some old friends?" "They are not my friends," Vera said coldly, brushing silver hair back from her face. "And if they discover our bond?" She hesitated, then looked straight into his eyes. "There is something you must understand. Among my people, when one life is saved by another, the bond, what we call the life debt, is sacred. But isolationists believe only one act can secure its inviolability." Jonathan arched a brow, his humor sharpening like a blade even under pressure. "And that would be?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "The joining." He caught the weight. In her tone, the gravity beneath the words. It wasn't just a metaphor. "You mean intimacy," he said bluntly. Her lavender skin flushed a deeper violet, but her gaze did not falter. "Yes, once completed, it leaves biological and pheromonal markers that even isolationists cannot ignore. If we are joined, they cannot separate us without breaking the most ancient of traditions." Jonathan let out a low laugh, though there was no humor in it. "Hell of a first date, Doc." "I do not make this suggestion lightly," Vera replied, her voice taut with restraint. "But if we are captured, it may be the only way to keep you alive." The hiss of the docking bay's airlock cut short their conversation. Harsh light spilled inside as the outer hatch cycled open. Figures appeared. In the threshold, tall Astralis in sleek gray uniforms, weapons at the ready. Their violet and indigo skin gleamed under sterile lights, faces set in grim, hostile lines. Jonathan's hand dropped toward his weapon, but Vera caught his wrist and shook her head sharply. "Not yet. Let them take us. Speak little." "Let me." "Led?" "Sure," Jonathan said under his breath as the first of the guards stepped aboard, their weapons aimed squarely at him. "Let the lavender diplomat, who was on the barbecue spit 5 minutes ago, handle it. What could go wrong?" The guards surrounded them swiftly. One barked an order in Astralis tongue. Vera responded with the same formality, her voice stripped of warmth. The leader's nostrils flared as he studied Jonathan, his 4 amber eyes narrowing in suspicion. Then, with a sharp gesture, they marched the pair down the ramp. Jonathan's boots echoed against the metallic floor of the asteroid. Facility. He kept his head up, eyes flicking over every detail, the placement of security nodes, the locked doors. The shadows where he might plant a diversion, if it came to that. They were escorted into a long corridor of smooth metal walls, faintly pulsing with hidden energy. The air smelled sterile, tinged with ozone and recycled oxygen. At the end waited a chamber with reflective panels that looked too much like an interrogation room. Jonathan shot Vera a sidelong glance, muttering under his breath, "So what's the play?" Her expression remained controlled, diplomatic mask firmly in place. But her hand brushed his for the briefest second, fingers cold but steady. "If they push," she whispered, voice low enough only he could hear, "then we join." Jonathan's stomach twisted with the certainty that whatever was coming next would change everything, not just for him, not just for her, but for Earth and Astralis alike. The door sealed shut behind them, and the interrogation began. The chamber smelled faintly of metal and antiseptic, the kind of place built for dissection rather than diplomacy. Jonathan sat in the lone chair they'd given him, its cold alloy biting into his skin. A reflective wall faced him, hiding whoever was watching on the other side. One guard stood rigid at the corner, weapon cradled across his chest. Jonathan leaned back, arms loose, forcing himself into the posture of a man who wasn't rattled. Inside, every instinct told him to catalog exits, weaknesses, angles. His gaze traced the seams of the door, the way the guard shifted weight between legs, the flicker of faint energy conduits running under the wall panels. Old soldier habits never quite leaving him. The panel in front of him shimmered and cleared like fog peeling off glass. An Astralis face appeared, angular, violet-hued, eyes sharp with suspicion. The uniform was plain gray, its cut severe. The man spoke in precise, clipped tones, and though Jonathan didn't understand the language, the translator embedded in the wall caught enough. "Human," the voice said. "Explain how you came to be with diplomat Vera Kix." Jonathan smirked faintly, though tension coiled in his chest. Followed her screams. Found her trussed up like a campfire roast. Didn't sit right with me. The Astralis commander's expression barely shifted. His eyes narrowed, nostrils flaring ever so slightly. Why would a human risk himself for one of us? Your kind acts only from self-interest. Jonathan shrugged. Believe what you want. Where I come from, you don't let people get cooked. Alive if you can help it. Doesn't matter what planet they're from. The commander's gaze lingered, as though weighing whether the words were defiance or truth. Primitive instincts, he murmured, and yet effective. Before Jonathan could answer, the door behind him hissed open. A second Astralis entered, a woman with pale blue skin, her silver hair arranged in elaborate braids that marked rank. She dismissed the guard with a sharp word. He hesitated, then obeyed, leaving the two of them alone. Her posture shifted as soon as the door sealed. The formality bled away. She leaned closer, her voice urgent, quiet. We have little time. I am not what I appear. Jonathan's brow arched. Let me guess, you're not the welcoming committee. A flicker of a smile touched her lips. Perceptive. I am Specialist Terse, working inside the isolationists. Vera and I both serve the diplomatic corps. I was embedded here to watch their movements. And now I must help you escape. Jonathan's instincts bristled. Why risk blowing? Your cover? Her expression darkened. Because Vera was not taken by accident. The attack on her mission was orchestrated. The Krell did not turn hostile on their own. They were supplied with Astralis weapons by isolationist hands. The words sank like lead. Jonathan leaned forward, voice hard. They wanted her dead. Yes, Terse confirmed. She is a threat to their narrative. She believes in cooperation with your people, in rebuilding trust after Proxima. The isolationists want the opposite. They need fear. They need division. And they will kill her and you to keep it. Jonathan's hands curled into fists against his thighs. He forced himself to keep his voice low. So what's the play? Terse pressed a small device into his hand. Its surface gleamed faintly with shifting symbols. This will disable the locks on your ship. I have arranged a distraction. When? The alarm sound go. Vera will be brought toward the docking bay for transfer. Intercept her there. He stared at the device, then at her. And you? What happens when they notice the distraction? I will delay them as long as I can. Her eyes softened, just for a heartbeat. You must survive, both of you. Take the evidence to Helio Station. Find Ambassador Nan. He still believes in the mission. Jonathan's chest tightened with a mixture of respect and dread. You're going to get yourself killed. Perhaps. Her voice was calm, steady as a blade's edge. But Vera's vision must live. And you have proven what she always argued, that humans act not just with logic, but with heart. Before he could answer, alarms shrieked through the corridors. The chamber's lights strobed red, shadows lurching across the walls. Terse straightened instantly, mask of authority snapping back into place. "Go," she barked. "Now." Jonathan rose in one fluid motion, tucking the device against his palm. He moved to the door, glancing back once. For the briefest moment, her eyes held his fierce, unyielding, but tinged with the acceptance of someone who had already chosen sacrifice. He slipped into the chaos of the corridor. Isolationist personnel sprinted past, shouting orders, their focus elsewhere. Jonathan navigated swiftly, every step carrying the muscle memory of infiltration drills, long buried but never forgotten. At a junction, he caught sight of Vera. Was being escorted by 2 guards, her hands bound, her expression a mask of cold dignity. Her eyes flicked up, widened when she saw him, and in that instant her mask cracked, the barest flicker of relief lighting her face. Jonathan moved. The alarms howled, footsteps thundered, and somewhere behind them, Terce's voice rose in a shout that cut off into the chaos. Jonathan didn't let himself think about what it meant. He had one mission now: get Vera out alive. The Nomad, or whatever was left of it, was waiting. And beyond that, a truth bigger than either of them was about to tear open. Helio Station rose before them like a jeweled crown against the emptiness of space. Its immense rings rotated slowly, a lattice of light and steel orbiting a central hub that gleamed like polished obsidian. Diplomatic ships of a dozen species drifted in the docking lanes, their hulls reflecting the golden glow of the stations. Artificial sun. Jonathan sat at the helm of the stolen Astralis scout ship, his hands tight on the controls. The vessel purred beneath his fingers, a far cry from the patched-up hum of the Nomad. In the co-pilot's chair, Vera was silent, her eyes fixed on the station ahead, amber irises burning like molten glass. Commander Raylan stood behind them, his uniform disheveled from the chaos of their escape, but his posture as rigid as ever. Jonathan broke the silence first. "Tell me again why docking here isn't suicide." Raylan's jaw tightened. "Because Helio is neutral ground. Even isolationists cannot act openly here without exposing themselves." Jonathan gave a humorless laugh. "And your certain neutrality means safety?" "No," Vera said softly, cutting in before Raylan could answer. Her voice carried both weariness and iron. "But it means rules. And rules can be wielded as weapons." Jonathan shot her a sidelong glance. "You're planning something." She turned her gaze on him then, steady, unwavering. "The bond we share it is not just words, Jonathan. Among Astralis, when it is declared before witnesses and sealed, under truth essence, it becomes law. No faction, not even the isolationists, can deny it." He frowned, feeling the weight of her words settle heavy on his shoulders. "You're saying we make it official, public?" "Yes." She leaned closer, her expression fierce. "If we stand before the council, if we declare our bond in the old way, we not only secure your protection, but also expose them. The truth. Essence reveals deception. If the isolationists try to deny us, they will betray themselves." Jonathan stared at her, caught between disbelief and something dangerously like awe. "You're suggesting we use your people's wedding ceremony as a sting operation?" Her lips curved faintly. A crude human metaphor, but accurate. For a long moment, the hum of the engines filled the silence. Then Jonathan leaned back, shaking his head with a grim smile. "Hell, why not? Nothing about this trip has gone according to plan anyway." Raylan exhaled slowly, as though he had been holding his breath. "It is audacious," he admitted, "but it may be the only chance we have." The docking clamps locked onto the vessel with a resonant thud. Jonathan powered down the engines as the bay's pressure seals engaged. Through the viewport, he could see station officials and Astralis dignitaries waiting in neat rows, their robes and uniforms gleaming. "Once we step out," Vera murmured, adjusting the folds of the borrowed cloak around her shoulders, "there will be no turning back." Jonathan rose from the pilot's chair, checking the charge on his sidearm before holstering it. Story of my life. The ramp descended. A wash of artificial sunlight spilled across them as they stepped into the docking bay. The crowd shifted, murmurs rippling at the sight of Vera alive, and at the human walking beside her. Ambassador Nan himself awaited them at the forefront, his deep indigo skin framed by silver-trimmed robes that denoted both rank and age. His eyes widened as they fell on Jonathan and Vera's clasped hands. "This is most unexpected." Vera inclined her head in a formal bow. Her voice carried the tone of ceremony. "Ambassador, I invoke the right of bonding. I request recognition of the life debt sealed between Jonathan Vega of Earth and myself." Gasps echoed through the assembled diplomats. Jonathan felt every eye on him, the weight of centuries of prejudice and suspicion pressing like a physical force. But when Vera's hand tightened around his, steady and unflinching, he matched her bow with a soldier's precision. Ambassador Nan's gaze lingered on them both before he finally inclined his head. "The tradition is clear. The ceremony will be held at first cycle." Later, in the quiet of the guest chambers assigned to them, Jonathan pressed his forehead against the cool metal wall, breathing hard. "Do you realize what we just set in motion?" Behind him, Vera stepped closer, her presence a calm anchor in the storm. "Yes, and so do you." He turned to her, searching her face, seeing not the frightened woman bound above the flames in the jungle, but a diplomat standing unbroken against a galaxy that wanted her silenced. And damn him, he realized he didn't just admire her. He needed her. Her fingers brushed his jaw, cool against the heat of his skin. "You saved me when no one else would have. Now I will save us both." Jonathan swallowed hard, his voice rough. "Then let's finish this." Beyond the chamber walls, the station's cycle bells tolled. Somewhere deep inside Helio's core, the truth essence was being prepared. Tomorrow, before a council of enemies and allies alike, their bond would be tested, not just for survival, but for the future of two civilizations. And Jonathan Vega, a man who had only meant to survey rocks in a jungle, was about to become part of history. The ceremonial chamber of Helio Station was unlike anything Jonathan Vega had ever seen. A circular hall, lined with translucent crystal walls, glowed with inner light, the ceiling lost in a swirl of holographic constellations. Tiered balconies rose around the chamber, filled with representatives from across Astralis space, their robes shimmering like liquid starlight. The air itself felt charged, humming faintly as if alive with the weight of ancient tradition. At the center stood Jonathan and Vera, their hands clasped. On a raised dais before them loomed Ambassador Nan, his indigo features solemn beneath his silver robes. Between them and the gathered assembly drifted a shimmering mist, faintly blue and luminous, the truth essence. It curled around Jonathan's arms, tickling his skin with a strange chill. Raylan had warned him what to expect. Essence revealed lies, punishing dishonesty with visible, undeniable discomfort. There would be no bluffing here. Nan raised his staff, his voice resonating across the chamber. Before the eyes of Astralis and the stars themselves, the bond of life shall be tested. Speak, and let the essence weigh your words. Vera's hand tightened around Jonathan's, her amber eyes luminous. She stepped forward first, her voice clear and unwavering despite the countless eyes upon her. "I am Vera Kix of Astralis. I was taken by the Krell, betrayed by conspirators within my own people. Jonathan Vega of Earth followed my screams into the jungle. He risked his life, offering medicine of great value to save me. In him I found not an enemy, not a mercenary, but a man of courage proof that compassion knows no species. I declare our bond, forged in fire and in blood, to be true. The truth essence shimmered brighter, swirling around her in affirmation. A ripple of approval swept the chamber. Jonathan exhaled slowly, then stepped forward. "I'm Jonathan Vega, human of Earth," he said, his voice blunt and stripped of pretense. "I didn't come to Narum to save diplomats. I came for minerals, for credits, for work I thought might fill the hole that military service left behind. But when I heard her screams, I couldn't walk away. Didn't matter she wasn't human. Didn't matter what politics say about our peoples. What mattered was that she needed help. That's what started this. But it's more than that now. I stand here because I choose her, because I believe we can be more together than apart." The essence surged in a sudden wave, wrapping around them both like a living current. A gasp echoed through the chamber, but not because of Jonathan's. Words dot in the balconies above. 3 Astralis officials shifted uneasily, their skin mottled, their robes dampening with sudden sheen. One clutched his throat, eyes narrowing in fury as the essence burned against the deception hiding in his heart. Another hissed, trying to compose himself, but the twisting of his features betrayed him. Murmurs erupted as the gathered diplomats realized what they were witnessing. Nan's eyes flared with sharp awareness. "Isolationists," he intoned, his voice ringing like a hammer, exposed by tradition itself. He raised his staff, signaling guards. The conspirators were seized as chaos rippled through the balconies. Jonathan felt Vera lean into him, her voice low but fierce. It worked. But before he could respond, Raylan stepped forward, his face grim. "Ambassador," he called, producing a crystalline data shard. "This ship contains stolen records. The conspiracy runs deeper. The Krell attack was staged, yes, but not by Astralis alone." Nan accepted the shard, eyes scanning as the information flared into holographic streams above them. Gasps broke out across the chamber as the files revealed their contents. Human insignias, corporate seals, shadow agreements, plans for joint operations between Astralis isolationists and rogue human faction schemes to provoke open conflict, to profit from war. The chamber fell silent, every pair of eyes turning toward Jonathan, his gut twisted. There it was, carved into light for all to see, proof that some of his own kind had sold out peace for credits. Ambassador Nan's voice cut the silence like a blade. "So, not only Astralis betrays, humans as well." Jonathan met the ambassador's gaze, then swept the hall with his eyes. He felt the truth essence coil around him, demanding honesty. His voice came low but steady. "I don't answer for them, I answer for myself. For what I did on Narum, for saving Vera, for standing here now. That's the only proof I can give you." The essence flared once more, wrapping him in light, and the murmurs in the balconies shifted. Suspicion remained. But so did something else. Vera had said once, in the quiet hum of his ship. Respect. Nan lowered his staff. "Then let it be recorded. By bond and by essence, Jonathan Vega of Earth and Vera Kix of Astralis are joined, and their testimony reveals a danger greater than either people alone. We must face it together or fall divided." The chamber erupted. In debate, the air alive with voices. But Jonathan barely heard them. He turned to Vera. Her hand was still in his, cool and certain. Her smile was small but unshakable. "You've made history," she murmured. Jonathan gave a crooked grin. "All I did was follow some screams in a jungle." Her amber eyes glowed, reflecting the swirl of stars above them. "Sometimes that is how history begins." And as the council tore itself apart, and rebuilt again, Jonathan Vega understood the truth. What had begun as a single act of reckless compassion had ignited something far larger. A war loomed in the shadows, but so, too, did a fragile, impossible hope dot, and for the first time in years, Jonathan felt he had finally found his purpose.